Today is going to be a very special recording. I'm doing a test. I met someone on a podcast guest group, and he said he just likes to talk. I was like, all right, cool. Let's do a social experiment. This is our very first time meeting, our very first time talking. We're just going to jump straight into it. I mean, I don't know how it's going to be. I don't think the person knows how it's going to be. So it's going to be interesting. So with that, he just jumped in. Welcome Kevin to the stage.
How you doing?
That's pretty interesting. Like right on time. You know how they always say, "Speak of the devil."
Yeah.
I was just telling,
Well,
like,
I'm very big on timeliness, so I try to be on time.
hey, I love the punctuality. Being punctual is very good. I mean, I jumped on a little earlier as well because I wasn't sure. I was like, the Marine in me was just like, "Hey, you're early on time. You're on time. You're late. To be late is unacceptable."
And you're preaching to me. Yeah. 10 minutes early is on time. Except I was only like 4 minutes early, so I guess I'm late. But
I mean, no, you're still on time because you're still early because we said 6 o'clock and anything before that is on time. If you came on time, then you would have been late.
there you go, yeah.
Okay. I was just telling them, look, I just met this guy on the Facebook group, podcast guest. I don't know him. He don't know me. We were like, hey, let's just link up and talk. So I don't know how this is going to go. Who knows? So I imagine I know it's going to be good. I'm going to speak life into it. It's going to be amazing.
There you go. My wife was like, who are you talking to tonight? I was like, a guy named Danli. What are you talking about? We're going to find out.
So one thing with me is whenever I do a podcast, I like to just let the room just be a cool, chill vibe. It's individuals coming together and just conversing. I don't like, even when I have like my panel discussions, I don't call them debates. Some people like to be like, oh, you're having a debate tonight. I don't like using the word debate because when it's a debate, it's too close to an argument. I don't do all that on my platform. You know, when I bring people on, we all are able to discuss whatever it is that we're talking about, whether you agree or disagree with the person. I imagine everyone to have a high enough emotional intelligence to be able to listen and then ask questions to better understand where the person's coming from, whether you agree or disagree. And if you disagree, try and see what the person is talking about because you never know. You may learn something new or you might teach that person something.
Totally agree. Yeah, I'm having trouble. So real quick though, are you on YouTube right now live?
No.
Yeah, I just want to know if I need to watch anything I say because I know sometimes I'm not on YouTube. I don't put my stuff on YouTube because I don't want to censor myself.
Yeah.
Just in the terms of like medical procedures and things like that, you know. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear. So, but no, I totally agree with you that we should be able to discuss things like adults, and that is completely almost completely gone in this world. I've had such a hard time getting people who, shall we say, are opposed to me politically
Yes.
to come on my show and even talk. And I'm like, how are we going to get past this impasse that we all have with each other, it seems, if we don't even talk, you know? So I totally agree.
And that's something that gets me because in this day and age, you have a lot of individuals who have no social skills at all. Either they're afraid, they are a little timid, they're a little they stumble over their words because they don't really think before they speak, and then they're questioning on if that was okay to say. It's interesting to be on the outside looking in and seeing these types of things.
Yeah. It is. You see people like in the store with headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking around in their own world. Like they don't want to interact with anyone. You know, like that's obvious.
Have like situational awareness around themselves. A lot of things can happen, and they're just like la la la. So,
yes, yeah, like no noise canceling. There could be a gunfight behind you. You'll just continue grabbing the oranges and go on with your day. Yeah,
that sounds like something that would happen in Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what do you? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you what's some types of things you talk about on your show.
On my show, I talk about spirituality, mental health. My biggest thing is really allowing other individuals to speak their truth, reminding people that, you know what, you are not a victim of your circumstances, you are a survivor.
Okay.
And then with it, I also have discussions of dealing with relationships. To answer your question, the main thing that I talk about in my podcast is anything that I go through on my spiritual journey. So I share a lot of life lessons, and with that, I take the knowledge that I have learned and pass it on to others. We all are living our own realities, but there are similarities that we all can converse about because things that I have gone through, you may have gone through, and vice versa.
Gotcha. Okay.
What do you talk about on yours?
Oh man, a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
It's kind of a variety show. Probably half of my episodes up till now are with two other guys, and we talk mainly about current events and politics and things like that.
Okay.
And yeah, one is a former communist, former bona fide communist. Like his dad was very involved in communism back in the 60s and 70s,
Mhm.
and now he's a certified MAGA head conservative Republican. And so it's pretty wild to get his perspective. And I knew him before he became conservative, and I would have never known that he was like that. So that's
Oh,
really interesting. And then the other guy is uh, one of his friends, and he comes from a whole different, similar perspective, but a different background. And so we talk a lot about politics and current events. And then the other half or so is like me alone with someone like you.
mhm.
And excuse me, I've talked to uh, people who have written their own homeschool curriculum.
Nice.
I talked to someone who raises Siberian cats in America. It's like the only one or one of the only ones who breeds Siberian cats in America. And kind of like if it interests me, I want to talk about it, you
Yeah.
know? So uh like the thing I put on the post that you responded to, I'm like, let's just talk. Whatever you want to talk about, let's just talk, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have it's a variety show really.
Okay. That's what's up. Yeah, I have a lot of individuals who are on my show. Like I have a Saturday panel.
Hmm.
On Saturdays, we usually have designated topics, and we'll end up going over those topics. We have done Black love. We have done love in general. We have done spiritual awakenings. We have done Kundalini risings. We have done. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to say this one. Growing, well, dealing with trauma and growing from it. We have talked about. It's a lot of healing and knowing of self. I have now with it, I like I said, I have my Speak Your Truth segment where I've had a lady with dyscalculia come in where very smart woman, but she struggles with numbers. I've had individuals talk about narcissistic relationships they've been in, individuals talking about how they were molested when they were younger, which caused them to go into being a police officer or dealing with like community services or outreaches, doing things along those lines. I've talked to individuals who had near death experiences. Like I yeah, like I love the Speak Your Truth segment because you learn a lot, and at the same time their outlook on life is different, and I love the way that
Mhm.
no matter what negative things have happened to them, they find the light and the positive in it and turn it around.
Gotcha.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty dope. It's
So you
pretty
have a
dope.
little bit of a variety as well.
Yeah, I do. I would have to say my biggest thing, though, is positivity, spirituality, and growth.
Okay.
So, I
Gotcha.
mean,
Now, question: when you say spirituality, what do you mean exactly?
so knowing thyself, understanding who you are, where you're going, where you've come from.
Okay. Gotcha. Because that's kind of a I hear that word a lot,
Mhm.
and I think it can have numerous meanings depending on who you're talking to. So
Yes.
yeah.
And that's one of the things because right now I feel like a lot of people when they say spirituality are thinking of like that woke community.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't tie myself into that whole woke community because I'm constantly learning. And when it comes down to woke, they're like a lot of people who say they're woke, it's almost like it's a movement, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
And
Yeah.
with
We talk a lot about that on ours too. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like with me, I'm like, no, I'm spiritual. With me saying I'm spiritual, I'm understanding that we all are connected and everything that I do affects everything around me. I'm living in my own reality, and with that, I create my own reality. The things that have happened to me help me get to where I'm going. And the way that my outlook on everything is what shapes what is going to happen.
Okay.
I'm not like
Yeah,
one of those crystal thumpers and all that. Granted, I love crystals; they're beautiful and
yeah,
have different frequencies. But
yeah, part of God's creation. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I so a little bit about me. I'm a believer in Christ.
hmm
I'm Christian, born again, saved by the grace of God. So when I hear things like spirituality, I just want to know where people are coming from when they say that, because like I said, it can mean a lot. And
yes,
so, no, I hear what you're saying. I think everything you said there is accurate. For me, I view everything in light of the message of Christ.
hmm
Salvation through Him and being right with God because of
yeah.
that. So, yeah.
See, I love the fact that you said God, because that was something like my mom. She is an ordained minister and a deaconess, and I grew up in a Baptist household. I grew up Christian, and I had a lot of questions growing up, and it got to the point where my mom was like, "Well, ask the pastor." Then the pastor was like, "You're gonna have to find those answers yourself," which caused me to look into a
Hmm.
lot of different religions. Looking into those religions, I came to came to realize I was like, man, a lot of the religions are speaking about this are speaking the same thing when it comes down to like the morals. Um, in this day and age, what I've noticed is back then it was God. Now everything is Jesus. And so it had raised the question where I was like, but Jesus says, I am the son. Like he's like, I am the son of he's like, I'm the son of man. And I don't remember Jesus ever saying he's God, but listening to a lot of pastors and everything, they paraphrase and try and make it seem like Jesus is God, which now everybody worships Jesus. But the thing that kills me is they have Jesus on the cross that does not fit what it states in the Bible that he supposedly looks like. So that had made me question things. With it at the same time, I'm like, now it also states in the Bible not to make any false idols or anything along those lines. So now you have something that does not fit the description of what they're saying he looked like, and then y'all are worshiping that. So now technically, isn't that a false idol?
I see your point. I think it's a valid point. A couple things.
Mhm.
Now, bear with me. I am not a minister. I am a layman. Like
I mean, I'm not either.
so yeah. But take everything I say with a grain of salt and do your own investigation. But
Faith the
so
side,
I believe that I believe that Jesus was that.
faith the side of a mustard seed.
There you go. There you go. So I believe that Jesus is. So I believe that God is represents Himself in this world in particular ways.
Mhm.
Okay, it's often called the Trinity.
Yes.
People say, well, how can God be three things? And you're kind of a polytheist, and like, well, no, it's just how He represents Himself. So God is too perfect to be in this fallen world. God the Father. So He sent the other part of Himself, God the Son,
Mhm.
Jesus. And Jesus appears throughout the Old Testament, intervening in this fallen world. He appears to Abraham and holds the knife back, saying, "No, don't kill your son. You have faith. I'm going to make a great nation out of you."
Yeah.
All through that Old Testament, and then He comes as human in the form of Jesus Christ, the human form, and then is sacrificed to save the world. And then after He leaves, the Holy Spirit is sent to indwell those who believe in Him. So those are all the same entity.
Okay.
It's how that entity chooses to represent himself in the world. That I think that is a more accurate way to look at it. And then, excuse me, when you said that people like maybe like you see a white Jesus, like on a cross or
Mhm.
a painting, and like that. There's also Asian Jesuses. Like when
Mhm.
people represent them, people kind of put their own culture and what they look like onto representations of Jesus.
Yes.
So I think that you're going to have that because just people want to see themselves, But he was clearly a Middle Eastern man. I don't know if you've seen the Chosen. It's a show about Jesus. It's just very good, and
I'm gonna have to look it
I
up.
think he. What's that?
I said I'm gonna have to look it up.
It's excellent. It's on the Angel app, Angel Network.
Okay.
And so he looks like a Middle Eastern man. And it probably very close to what Jesus actually looked like. So anyone who has a head can acknowledge that and be like, okay, these representations of Jesus are just cultural representations of him. And as far as like having an icon or like a false idol or something,
Mhm.
as long as you're not, this is how I feel. There's as many Christian denominations there are. There's different ways to view this and opinions,
Yeah.
but as long as you're not worshiping that little cross as God Himself, and you can just you have it as a representation of what you believe, and it's not like you believe in that thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think you're worshiping a false god because of that.
Okay.
That's my opinion. If
Okay.
that makes any sense.
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. My only issue there is just the fact that they created it's still a false idol because it's not one, it's not accurate, and two, I don't remember Jesus stating that he is God. Well, stating that he is God in that sense, like, hey, worship me, I am God type deal. But he doesn't state that God is within him, as in God is within all of us. So
So go.
Go.
Jesus never refused worship.
mhm,
When people would worship him, he did not refuse it. Angels, when angels would appear in the Old Testament, especially, they would say, well, I'm not the one to worship. I'm just a messenger. Jesus never refused worship. And it did say in John, I'm horrible with verses. That's why I'm not a pastor. Right? In John 1, it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word is Jesus, and it says the Word was God. And there's other numerous places that talk about that, but I'm not the person to reference those. So
now I don't study the Bible and everything. I'm not like I don't. That's not my profession.
yeah.
But you know how it states that nothing should be added or removed?
Mm-hmm.
But yet there are scriptures that are removed. There are books of the Bible that have been removed. So my biggest thing is when it comes down to the religion of Christianity, which I'm gonna touch on some other things about that later on. How is it that a lot of individuals can put so much faith into a book that already has gone against what it states and is also incomplete based off of the only things in there is what the Vatican deems should be in there?
Okay, so it
Example,
wasn't.
Apocrypha is not in there.
Yeah, no, I agree. In
As
the
well
book of, sorry, go ahead.
I said as well as other books.
Yeah, the book of Enoch is not in there as well, but you see many places in the Bible, many places directly quote from the book of Enoch.
Mhm.
All right. So the argument for just specifically the book of Enoch is that it would have been repetitive to put it in there. So when that adding and removing, what that is referring to is the message of Christ, in that belief and faith in him is what saves you. If you add to that, or if you add something to that, like there were Judaizers right after, in the first century after Christ died, and people were going around spreading the word. These people said that you need to be, it's great that you believe in Jesus. Yeah, we do too, but you also need to be circumcised. That is adding, okay, that is adding to what Jesus said. So that adding and removing, I don't think that's means the Bible as we know it, but that is talking about the message of Jesus. Because if you add or remove to the message of Jesus, you're getting it wrong. And there's debates about what should be included in the Bible, what shouldn't be.
Mhm.
I mean, that's humans who are fallible trying to put this thing together. So Jesus never said this is what should be in the Bible.
Yes.
He never laid that out. That's humans kind of trying to put it together, doing the best they can as fallen creations, trying to represent the Word of God. So, like I said, the Book of Enoch, you can find great stuff in there. but some of it was repetitive, so they just didn't put it in. And then there's other things that claimed to be um, books that were later found out to be forgeries, and so it's very complicated. And I wouldn't want to be the one to decide what goes in there. I don't. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm glad I didn't have that job, but um,
it's a lot to have on your shoulders.
yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think when I hear that argument, I understand that argument.
Mhm.
Like you don't want to add to, but it's not the Bible itself. It's the saving message of Christ. That's my rebuttal to your.
I love that. It's in all honesty, the wording that is used, and that is
Mm,
what I love, because you're saying it's the message of Christ, not the message of Jesus or things like that. So you're not. It's the Christ ultimately is the one providing the message, and I mean that right there ties in with spirituality, because even in spirituality, they in a lot of individuals who say that they are spiritual, they often mention the Christ. They'll say the Christ consciousness. And with that is pretty much higher enlightenment, which really kind of it falls into the same frame, I believe. Now, something that I've been noticing a lot more when people talk about the Bible, basic instructions before leaving Earth, I have been hearing a lot more people denouncing the religion, but being more in with the relationship with Christ. So
okay.
they're like, I'm not religious, but I have a relationship with Christ. And I'm like, I was like, I like the first time I heard that, I was like, ooh, okay. And with it, I looking into it, I feel like when it comes down to the word religion, it's really just a divide of people. Because when uh, you know how Christianity came about, right? It was a lot of deaths. It was
Well, I mean, it's uh, Christianity means Christ followers, so you're following Jesus.
the religion of Christianity. I mean, the Crusades and everything, they were doing all this in the name of Christ.
W- Well, I mean, Christianity was around before then. Like the apostles were Christians.
But the forcing of Christianity upon individuals, the way that it was forced upon them mainly through fear. I mean, they were killing people, they were doing heinous acts to individuals, like denounce your I don't they weren't calling it religion, but they were telling them like you're witches and all these things, and
Hmm.
you need to come to Christ yeah, doing all that type stuff. They had different equipments and stuff. I'm not trying to get too much into it because I
Yeah, yeah,
do post this to YouTube.
yeah.
So,
I hear
but
you.
it was it's wild, like, when you look into it, the things that they were doing in the name of God.
Agreed. Now, I wouldn't. Excuse me. I would not condone any sort of force conversion or
Yes.
any sort of violence just to make people convert.
Mhm.
Anything like that is not real. So that's pointless and antithetical to the gospel. Yeah, agree. But that I would say that's I wouldn't say that is how Christianity came about, though. I would argue on that point. But
Okay. So how would you say that Christianity came about?
well, the apostles spreading the word of Christ right after he died. Yeah, and arguably, the Orthodox Church claims to be uh, that direct line back to the apostles. Catholics split off of them. When was it? 12 or 1300 or so, and then Protestants split off of them in the
Mhm.
Reformation. And so, I mean, that is essentially Christianity as far as any sort of organized system. Uh, that's just telling people about God and what He did through Christ. I mean, that is Christianity. I mean, the
Yeah,
way humans organize themselves is different and can be different. But if you're preaching Christ crucified as the only way to God, that is Christianity.
I used the wrong word. What I meant to say was spread.
Okay.
So how
Oh,
Christianity
spread.
spread sorry,
Hmm.
you're right about how it came about, but how it was
No, I'm
spread
sorry.
to where it is in the masses, and how we have majority of this planet, not majority, how we have a great population of the planet being Christians. The way that Christianity was spread was a lot of it was through fear.
I wouldn't argue that some of it was. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a religious historian, but I wouldn't disagree that some of it was. Yeah, I mean, the Crusades. I don't want to argue about the Crusades. I think there was a legitimate. So I think there was state actions
Mhm.
that were done um, under the guise or behind the veil of religion.
Mm.
So I think that there was things that happened where it was like, let's say this is for God and Christianity and let's go do it.
Yes.
That is not how you should spread the gospel of peace.
Yeah,
So I mean I agree with you that happened,
the
but I
gospel of
think
peace, we're gonna do it like this, though.
yeah, I
I'm ready.
totally agreed. Like violence is I'm a non-aggression principle type of person. Violence is not the answer. So I would not condone anything like that, but I wouldn't argue that there was some of that, but I would say that it's not all that.
Yes, it's not. And I mean, when you get down to the actual message, it speaks against that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I mean, that was one thing that had got me. I was like, how is it that it was spread like this, but that's like hippies carrying guns. Like, I don't get it. Spread
Yeah.
love. Wait, what you say? Like,
Yeah.
no, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's people, you got fallen people
Mhm.
doing things for all kinds of motivations. And you can say, well, this is for God. Let's go do it. And like, you can hide behind that. Yeah. Agreed.
So one thing that had got me, the reason why I had brought up the religion was because you have all these other religions and they're not like raging war and speaking down on people because somebody does not agree with what they agree with. But you see that a lot with religious Christians, and it's funny. Like if someone were to walk up to me and call me like the N word, I'm like, "Yo, what the world?" And I feel like if you say Bible thumper to a Christian, that's the same thing. But when you have like those individuals who are like in this book, this is it. This is all that there is. Everything that you believe in is wrong and false, and you're this, and you're going to burn in hell. Like those types of Christians, it's like you have to take a step back and be like, you're acting very ungodly right now. Like, how are you acting this way, talking about something that contradicts the way that you're acting right now? You know?
Mm.
And I'm like, you see that a lot in example in churches or people who are walking around and you catch them out of character and you're
Mm.
like, hey, which sometimes make me wonder, like, are they just acting this way to be perceived a certain way around certain people? And then their true self comes out when they feel that there's no eyes on them?
Mm. Well, that's definitely possible. Um, so did you say no other religion is violent like that? Because I would say Islam is
Yeah.
pretty violent.
I mean, you
They
have
can be,
you
can
got
be.
you got the what are they? Rational Islam? I think that's what are they called?
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, let's just there's been people do bad stuff all the time, no matter what banner they do it under of. So that's a given. But so about the people like a Bible thumper. If you called me a Bible thumper, I would just chuckle and wonder what you meant exactly, honestly. So what you mean though is someone just like basically telling someone else they're going to burn in hell if you don't believe exactly what I believe. That's that kind of what you mean by that.
Yes.
Okay. So that is no way to win friends and influence people. So that is so it's a very hard line to draw because as someone like me who believes in something deeply and
Mhm.
believes that it is the only way to be sanctified and made right with God, I have to say that because I believe it. And I
Mhm.
have to represent that to the world as the best way to go through the world and to live and to interact with people. Okay. Representing it goes far, just has so much more legs than just telling someone. Like you need to represent that. You still there?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Representing that in the form of actions and kindness and love does so much more to show people what you believe than just saying it. When you tell someone you should be doing this and then you do the other thing, it's like, well, who are you? You're a hypocrite. And so God had very strong words for people like that. And so there's these people in the little town that I live in, and they occasionally get on this one of the busiest intersection
Mhm.
with a big loudspeaker and basically do what you were saying. And I just shake my head whenever they're there. They were there last Saturday when it was like 10 degrees out. They were out there. And I just shake my head. I'm like, you're not doing anything to convince anyone driving by
Not at all.
that what you believe is the proper and right way to interact with the world and God. Like, you're doing nothing with that. So it is unproductive. I mean, those people, I understand their passion, because if you passionately believe about something or in something, you want to tell the world, because the gospel is the best news ever. God himself came down, sacrificed himself so that I could be made right and sanctified. And you're giving that message, but you're not doing it in a good way.
Okay. I can definitely agree there, because I know, like, when I was in New York, you'll have them like standing on the corner with the signs and stuff, and they're like be yelling. Back then, they would be yelling at people. Now they probably have like a speaker and a mic, but back then
Yeah.
they'd be yelling
Yeah.
and trying to pass out the pamphlets and stuff. And we're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, chill out, bro." I completely agree.
Yeah.
So what would you do? All right, take yourself to this moment where you're no longer on this world.
Mhm.
You're now going through, and you have God in front of you. He tells you, you were not following me, you were following yourself.
That'd be the absolute worst thing ever. Because if he meant that, if I am rejected, then I would be eternally separated from him. And that's the worst thing that could happen.
Because I saw a video where an individual had a he passed away and he came back.
Okay.
And in the afterlife, he said that he saw God, and pretty much God rejected him and was like, "You were not worshiping me; you were worshiping yourself." And that's when it hit the guy. He was like, "Dang, I was following everything that it stated in the Bible, but I was doing it to so that way I would go to heaven, not
Mm.
doing it because of the fact that he wanted to he wasn't doing it necessarily for the reasons that he should have been, as in to be closer to God. He was doing it to go to heaven. He was doing it
Mm.
he was he I gotta find the video. When I find the video, I'm gonna message it to you so that way
All
you
right.
can see.
So he was just wanting to make sure that he is saved when he dies. Like,
Yes.
he just doesn't want to go to hell, basically,
Yeah,
is
he
all
was
he said.
doing it for selfish reasons.
Okay.
He wasn't following God. He was doing things for selfish reasons. He was following himself. He was following what he wanted. He wasn't being
Okay.
selfless, he was being selfish. He was
Okay.
doing things seeking a reward at the end, and the reward
Mm.
was going to be to walk through the gates of heaven.
I see.
And I was like, "Oh, well, god dang, bruh." Man, that really makes you look at it differently. Because a lot of people try and dangle heaven above you as or either damn you to hell if you're doing wrong.
Mm.
If you're not following the book verbatim, which a lot of people don't follow the book verbatim. I'm like, they skip Passover. They're not actually, they skip the Sabbath day. They don't believe in the Sabbath day, which, if I'm not mistaken, that would be Saturday, wouldn't it? Not Sunday?
Well, yeah, I don't know how much time you have, but we can. There's a whole lot to that.
But in all honesty, that was something, hearing that made me look at it a little different. I was like, man, a lot of individuals, even if it's not in a religious way, we do things seeking some type of gratitude, seeking
Mm.
someone to validate us, give us a pat on the back. We're doing it for some reason. We're not doing it just out of the kindness of our heart. We're not doing it because that's the way that it should be. We're doing it for something. Like, can you look at yourself and say, I'm doing this because this is what I'm supposed to be doing, not I'm doing this because this is what the word says. Like,
Let me think. I want to get my words right. So
mhm,
give me a second, because that's really important, and that's a big issue. Number one, I would say to that person that they should be thankful and use that as a wake up call.
mhm,
Number one, uh, and secondarily, near death experiences. I believe those can be used by entities that are not kind or favorable to us, basically are against God.
mhm,
I believe those near death experiences can be um, infiltrated, that's the right word, by demonic entities, fallen
mhm.
angels, and the like. So that's something you have to watch out for. If you do have a near death experience, what you experience might not be perfect and true, I would say,
Okay.
in my view of them. But I really am not well versed in them. And so how I look at my faith and what I believe in is quite different than how I was raised. I was raised in a Baptist church also. And for the first 20 years, I went to a Baptist church and hymns, organ, the whole deal. And I went to a Christian school too, K through 12.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, a lot of Christian leaders, when it comes to kids, talk about believing as a way to avoid hell. That is extremely unfortunate.
Mhm,
What I've kind of how my faith has been refined over the last maybe decade is I was created for a purpose. It says, again, I'm horrible with the biblical addresses, but it says that we are created to praise God in all we do. And everything I do, I am to praise Him.
mhm.
My work, my family, my words, everything is to give Him praise. And I want to be in alignment with how I was or what I was created for. Because I am a created being. I would not be here but for God creating me. So, what right do I have to live incongruently with how I was created? That's kind of how I view my faith, and so I don't see it as a burden to try to live a certain way or to make sure I'm doing the right things. I try to praise God in all I do, and in doing that, I feel that I am mostly, as much as possible, aligned with how He created me, and giving Him praise in all I do is literally all I can do, and tell people about Him when I can. But
Okay.
show people. Like again, you need to show people
Yes.
what kind of a person you are, rather than tell them how bad they are.
See, one way that I look at it, based off of exactly how you just said, to where you're going to be who you are authentically, and with that, it will draw people towards you, and they would end up. Usually, they'll end up asking, like, "Oh, why are you so happy?" Da da da, and then you can let them know, like, "Oh, because."
Yes.
Like, rather than being out there and going, "Hallelujah, God is gonna save you," like the speakers and everything. And I feel like that's the way I feel that that's how it's intended to be. You living through Christ is going to draw those people to you to allow you to pass that word to them.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Well,
therefore,
that's
oh, go ahead.
good. No, no, no. Good.
Oh, I'm like, so therefore, you being I don't want to say embodiment. You living Christ-like is going to show people what Christ is like.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, agreed.
agreed.
That is
That is
how
how
Jesus
Jesus re
witnessed as well. I mean,
Mhm,
that's what He did in this world. He went to the wedding with some friends, and they ran out of wine, and so He's like, I got this. I'm making wine because you need it, you know,
Yeah.
because you need it because I love you and this is what you need. And he'd heal people when he felt called or it was their appointed time to do it. And he cared deeply and he cried with people and he was a real person who
Yes.
cared about people. And but that did not stop him from telling them the truth. You know, when the Pharisees were being Pharisees, he told them, he's like, y'all are a den of vipers, you're a whitewashed tomb, you're no good. So we shouldn't not tell the truth. There are times to call it like we see it, but to show strangers or even acquaintances and friends who God is and your faith in Christ is just to try to be like him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's hard. It's not easy.
Extremely, extremely. I mean, nobody is perfect. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. There was one. There was one and they killed him for it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's wild, and I that's one thing that I wish that this world would go back to living in love. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we're missing right now is love in this world. There's a lot of individuals who are living in fear and hate because they were not shown love. And then there's people who when they are shown love, it's so foreign to them that they act out against it because they're trying to stay in a level of familiarity. They're so comfortable in being stressed out. They're so comfortable in living in a negative way that when they're treated right, they feel like that is wrong. I
Hmm.
know that it states in Revelations that in the end times, what's good will be seen as bad, and what's bad will be seen as good. And it seems like that's where we're at now.
So um why do you think it's so hard to live in an attitude of love?
Because so many people are afraid of not fitting in and not being liked. Because if you move in love in a world of hate, you're going to be seen as the outcast.
Maybe it's vulnerable to live like that.
Maybe there's something in everybody that wants to be included. And
Hmm.
when you're doing things to where you're not included, it makes you feel a type of way. But one of the biggest issues is a lot of people are holding on to that pride and ego of wanting to be accepted. So therefore
Yeah.
now they're questioning themselves on, should I be like the masses or should I be myself? And due to the fact that I feel we all are supposed to move in love, but we all want to fit in at some point. And therefore, now if you're acting in a way that is not who you are, which a great majority are doing, they're having internal conflicts and battles with their true self internally, which therefore now is causing kind of a psychosis with them to where they're not thinking of what they're not really doing and just going through the movements of what is being told to them via the media, via others around them, and playing off of what they see, which in this day and age is a lot of negative things.
Yeah. Hmm. So I'm trying to think how to say what I'm thinking about that. When I was little, I really struggled with fitting in.
Hmm.
I was bullied a bit. I was always trying to be uh, just accepted and just fit in. Like I wanted to be part of the cool crowd, I guess.
Yes.
And in doing so, I was very false to myself, and I didn't like. I went along with things that I didn't like, and I didn't have an opinion that was my own, you know, for a long time.
Mhm.
Uh, when you say that people are going along to fit in, I kind of equated my experience with that, and because and that will create a lot of internal conflict and strife. And if you don't really know who you are or what you believe,
Yes.
how can you be real with anyone and get to know anyone and have a relationship with anyone?
Yes.
So it might be something, excuse me, yeah, it might be something to that, what you're saying. I don't know when you wonder why people do things. Like, you wonder why, people just do some of the worst things in the world, or why, a corporation poisons people and steals a bunch of money and selling a product that is bad. And
America.
what's that?
I said America.
Well, again, let's not make this 5-hour podcast, because when I get going on politics, it's curtains. But so I've actually wondered about this over the last couple of years, and I do have a little bit of a theory. And so you wonder why the Pharisees and the ruling elites, the religious elites of Jesus' time turned him in. Why did they want to kill him? Why did they want the Romans to kill him for them? Well, they were the ones in charge. He was threatening their power.
Okay.
He was threatening their station. Basically, wealth, power, and influence. Those things, I believe you can find the answer to why people do things. In most 99% of the time, it's one of those three things. Jesus threatened their influence, their power, and ultimately how much money they'd make. And so they're like, you gotta go, because I got a real cushy job here. I'm getting kickbacks from the tax collectors, and so we can't have you messing up our good system.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say today you get a corporation that's doing something, or it's all about money over people.
Yes.
That wealth, it's wealth. Like, it's wealth, and what you're going to do with that wealth, because then you're going to have more power and you're going to have more influence, which will give you more wealth. I mean, I have a hard time not seeing that in everything that people do when someone does something so egregious. It's like, why did you do that? And like, got to look inward. I see that in myself. Like, if I do something bad and, man, I need forgiveness, I'm like, okay, well, why did I do that? Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I didn't want to just admit who I really was to this person I did something to, and it's like a lot can be traced back to selfishness and wanting worldly gain rather than wanting the right thing, which gives praise to God. So that's my kind of little spiel on it. But I mean, there's so many variables you could go into.
Can I get personal?
Yeah.
So for you, what were you looking for when you were trying to fit in? What were you seeking?
Good question. Excuse me. Well, probably, man, I don't know, acceptance, I think, maybe is the word that comes to mind. And I don't know why. I guess maybe I wasn't taught the right way to behave by a father figure. My dad died when I was 14. And
Mm.
so there was a lot that had yet to be taught to me, if that makes sense. And I didn't realize how a man should be for a long time. And so I searching, like, maybe I should do this to fit in with them, or maybe I should act like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah, that'd be my guess, my quick diagnosis.
I can understand that, because with me growing up, my dad wasn't there. And then I know at one point my mom remarried and I had a stepdad, but I couldn't accept him.
That's hard.
He always treated his children different than me and my sister. So I mean, it just made it easier not to see him as a father figure.
Hmm.
So I mean, with that, me and him were always getting into disagreements and fighting to the point where it was that's that's a factor that led me to the down the path that I had went for a while. And now here I am in like my 30s, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm finally getting back to being my authentic self, my true self. And I
Hmm.
honestly have my children to thank for that. Because
Hmm.
seeing them be who they are and doing whatever they want to do whenever they feel like it, and talking the hell out of my ears, um, they're just being themselves in the moment. And I realized, you know what happened? I was the happiest when I was like that. When I can just do what I wanted to do, not do what I was told to do or do what I needed to do to fit into the societal norms. I mean, human beings are the only mammals that are taught how to live. Everything else, it like comes out and has an idea of what it needs to do. It knows
Mm,
its mom for milk. It might need a little bit of teaching to hunt, but it knows that that's what it needs to do. We're
yeah.
sitting here still trying to figure out, are we supposed to eat it? It's crazy. I mean, there was a gorilla that was taught sign language, and they end up asking him, "What do you think of humans?" And he's like, "Humans are stupid." Like, and I mean, it's crazy because I feel like all animals probably feel that way. If you look at animals, their life, granted, they have hardships. Everything has hardships. Everything has trying times, but they don't have to sit here and be like, "Oh, I need to go to the grocery store and get something to eat tonight." Hey, I need some toilet paper to wipe my backside from pooping out here. Like, oh, I need to pay to live on this planet
Yeah.
that I didn't ask to come to, you know? So it's it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I understand that when we are not walking in our authentic, genuine self, that's when we start having a lot of issues, mental issues and physical issues, a lot of stress buildup and cardiac arrest and high blood pressure, mental disorders. It's not just what we put in our, it's not just what we eat putting in our body, but it's also the things that we refuse to let out of our body. If you're constantly suppressing who you are, it ties back to having that internal battle with yourself. You're
Mm,
putting on a sure, you're living in a masquerade, hiding who you truly are, but being what everybody else wants you to be, and you think that that's who you are, while you have this true self, this inner child beating on this cage, wanting to come out and really experience the world. You know how many people are doing things that they don't even want to do just because of the fact that they have to in order to keep up this idea that they had started with people that they don't even really like.
yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Well, that's kind of the price to having a soul.
Mm,
Like animals, yeah, they don't have to like pay taxes, which I'm very envious of,
yeah.
but they also don't get the joy of having kids like we do. It's not the same. It's just
Well,
not the same.
they do.
So,
Oftentimes they get sold
well,
to something else.
well, yeah, but like what I mean. It's not the same experience, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I get to enjoy my kids for as much time as God gives me or them, and it's an entirely different existence. There's a popular podcast I listen to with some Orthodox Christians,
Mhm.
some priests or fathers as they call them, and a common thing that they say is we don't know what it's like to be a bat, and so they use that in a variety of ways. But it's like I can't imagine what it's like to be like that, so I shouldn't even try. Like a bat can't imagine what it's like to raise kids for 20 years and then have grandkids, and so it's part of the trade-offs, I guess.
So I know we all are living in our own reality. The things that I go through, the things that I experience on a day to day, most likely are not the things that you experience on a day to day. And as of right now, our realities are coming together with us being together on on this episode on this podcast. One thing that I always like to do before I end up ending the podcast is always giving gratitude and what you learned. So with it, I want to ask you, what do you what do you want to give gratitude for, and what did you learn?
I'm always grateful to hear other people's perspectives about anything, honestly. And so your perspective on spirituality, as you call it, is interesting to me, um, because it helps refine what I believe, and it helps me be able to relate to other people. So I'm grateful that you were able to share that with me, and hopefully I understood it properly.
And what did you learn?
Oh, what I learned? Hmm. Puppy child support? Oh
Oh
no,
no,
sorry. I learned I got to think about how puppy child support would actually work in a real world now. Yeah.
hey, that can be a running joke right there.
There you go.
You gotta tell your wife about that, babe.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about this? What if?
Yeah. So what did you talk about? puppy child support. You won't believe it. Did
Yeah.
a whole hour on it.
For me,
I would be remiss though. My daughter wants to know what your favorite color is.
blue.
Blue. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that used to be my favorite color.
Oh, what is your
Yeah,
favorite color now?
gray.
Oh, why
Yeah,
gray?
and I don't know why it changed, and I couldn't even tell you when either. But
Oh, really?
one day I realized the majority of my clothing was gray,
Oh,
and I had dressed myself in complete head to toe gray, and I didn't realize it. And I was like, okay, I can't go out like this. I'm like, I can't just be a blob of gray walking
yeah,
around. And I
yeah.
realized, well, like all my stuff that I like is gray. So I guess gray is my favorite color. So,
Oh, okay. So, but you never really stopped and thought about it, like, why do I
no,
have so much gray?
no, it was completely organic, as they say. Yeah.
It just catches your eye, or just so happens that the things that you like happen to be gray.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I think, I like it. I like the color the best, how it looks. Yeah.
Hmm.
It used to be blue. And I got a lot of blue. I got some blue there, but blue, blue and gray. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite shade of blue, or it was just blue altogether?
Actually, uh,
Because I mean, you think about it, they got like crayon box colors, like you got
oh yes.
shades of things, and it's got different names.
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't I think lighter blue, but I liked all blue. When the first house I bought and moved into before I met my wife,
Yeah,
I painted the living room dark, dark blue, like
like royal blue.
deep, deep blue, like it was like almost too dark, you know. And once I started dating her, and she eventually, when we got married and she moved in,
Mhm.
she's like, "Listen, this blue, it's a little much, you know. We need to do something about this." So she we went with a light blue, like a country blue, something, you know, about like this blue, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I liked blue, and then all of a sudden, I guess I'm a gray person.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
it
I mean,
happens.
that's something that's amazing about human beings. It's just we are constantly changing. We're ever changing. And I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you can't really say it's for the better or for the worse, because when it comes down to a duality, there is no such thing as good or bad. It's just human experience. The only way we're able to perceive it or define it is by saying good or bad. The universe recognizes things as in whatever you put out is what you will receive back.
Hmm. I would disagree with you there and say that there is such a thing as bad.
Okay.
But that's another. We'll go over that some other time.
The war on terror, America's war on terror. Who was good? Who was bad?
Uh, I say both. They're a little of both.
Okay. So how can both be good or bad? Somebody has to be good, somebody has to be bad, right? If you're looking at what is good, what is bad.
I wouldn't say it's so objective. I
Why
wouldn't say it's because I can be both good and bad. So
not?
anyone can be both good and bad, but there is an actual thing as bad. Like that's objective. We can tell that's true.
So what is bad?
Doing things that are against God.
So you're saying anything that goes against God is bad?
I would say so.
Okay. Now, if it's somebody who does not believe in your God, does that mean that what they're doing is bad? Their belief system is different? Because in their mind, you may be doing things that goes against their God, which now means that you're doing things that are bad, even though you're doing things that are good in your mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's a definite perspective. And there's only going to be one way to find out, and that's in the end when we're all there. So
So when it comes down to it, there really is no good or bad. It's based off of how we're describing it to one another. Because if we did not have language, how would you define good and bad?
that is a fair point. But like if I see someone kills a child,
Mhm.
like that's objectively bad.
Okay. So us
And
killing
there's
animals and chickens, is that bad or good?
depends on depends on your motivation. It
Okay.
depends on your motivation.
So what's the motivation of somebody killing a child?
Well, I wouldn't know it.
So
I
let's
mean, it
let's
would
say,
probably be bad because I don't think there's any good reason to.
and with that, if that child had killed their parents,
Hmm.
now what that child did is just being returned to them, right?
Yeah, I guess when I'm thinking of a child, I'm thinking of a 3-year-old who's done nothing wrong to anyone. That's kind of what I had in my mind.
Okay.
But justice is necessary. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So
And again, good.
no.
I'd say with the animals, like this depends, on your view of the world. But I think that God gave us the world to use and to be stewards of as we see fit. And so I believe that animals and plants are for our use, as long as we're using them in a good way and not a wasteful or a mismanaged way. So that's my answer for the animals.
Okay.
But if you just kill an animal for no reason and you don't use it,
Yeah.
that's bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if
That.
you treat animals that you are stewards of poorly,
Mhm.
that's bad. You should take care of the things that God has given us because He's given them to us, and they are ours to take care of.
So if let's take it back to the Bible and sacrifices. So is it good because they're doing it for God?
Yeah, because that's what they command. That's what He commanded them to do.
So when God said to go kill them because they're being loud, that's good?
Who is because they're being loud?
I'm like, so if God said go kill them because they're being loud, then you're doing good because God said to?
Objectively, I don't think we need a reason for God to say that. Um, if it's a command from
Too
yes,
cool.
it is. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract from the question, but if you receive a command from God
Mhm.
that you believe is legitimate, then you are obligated to do it. Like Abraham took Isaac up on the mountain and he was going to kill him
Yeah.
because God told him to. And
Yes.
because he obeyed, God saved him. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I said, but then God told him to stop. Like that was a
Yeah,
test.
because he realized, okay, Abraham, you you believe me. You
Mhm.
believe me that I'll provide for you. And so, yeah. Um uh, I mean, the way I believe, man, this could be such a long rabbit trail, but I believe the way that God used the nation of Israel in the Old Testament
Mhm.
was a way to get rid of groups of people that had gone so evil there was no redeeming them.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, just like the flood, and this gets back to, and like I said, man, this could be a whole rabbit trail. This goes back to fallen angels and the Nephilim,
Yeah.
and the way that the, the devil used these fallen angels to try to subvert the promised Jesus by messing up the bloodline.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes, like I said, it's very interesting, but it could be hours and hours. And I'm no expert. I'm a layman, but I do know more than most on the subject. But I believe if God tells you to do something and you believe it is a just and proper order, then you are bound to follow it. Now, that does have repercussions and consequences.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can't like, no, I'm good. Don't do anything to me. I was told,
Yeah.
like you can't just do that and not expect to have something happen. But if God really did that and really wanted you to, He will look out for you and protect you in some way.
Mm.
Does that make sense? I don't know. It's kind of,
Yeah, it
it's,
does. It made me think back to I wish I could remember the guy's name, but there was a serial killer who killed multiple women and said that God told him to do it.
mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, they sentenced him to the death penalty. And what if he ends up going to heaven? And he's like, I thought you would look out for me, and God's like, I returned you back to me. Like that
Hey,
joke. But I mean, seriously, that's one thing that gets me. I am a firm believer as of, and this is one of the things that helps me heal from the trauma that I have, is understanding, you know what, there is no true definition of good and bad. It's all in what you put out is going to come back to you, karma and dharma.
hmm,
So with that, the best thing to do is live in a Christ way. And if you're living in a Christ way, then you don't have to worry about those as we would say, negative stipulation.
Yes. Oh, I agree with that, and I don't. I guess I don't refer to that as karma because that's from a particular group of people that I wouldn't necessarily agree on. But that is living in accordance with your Creator.
Mhm.
You know, that is living Christ-like and living in accordance with how you were created. And if you live in accordance with how you were created, you're going to be at peace with others around you. You're going to be at peace with the creation because you are living how you were created. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that's true.
Okay. Now you said karma goes with a particular group of people. I think it's safe to say that English has adapted that word. I mean, so many people say karma now. It's not just to
It's true.
particular group of people.
It's
When
true.
everybody says the word karma, they know what goes around comes around. That's the meaning of it. So
Fair point. Yeah.
that's like me saying a word in Ebonics and then somebody going, "Oh, that belongs to them. Don't say that." Everybody knows. Like, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess I should say I don't know the origins of the word, so I
Yeah.
hesitate to use it because I like etymology and words have meanings. But you're right. It is colloquially known as what it means. Yes.
I love the fact that you said etymology. That's something we could talk on. I did an episode on etymology where I
Yeah.
did WTF is. I was like, what the is kind? And with it, when you get into the etymology of the word nice, and oh man, you realize that the word nice is not really so nice.